The third film I saw for October 3rd was Arsenic and Old Lace, a 40s comedy that on the surface doesn't really seem like it would fit my October challenge, but hey, the whole film takes place within a 24-hour period on Halloween night. There are a bunch of spooky going-ons with a murderer on the loose, two women who are committed murderers, and a whole bunch of nonsense involving graveyards. So it kind of fits in, and for a 40s comedy, it's definitely entertaining. The real reason why I picked it was because when I was devising a list of possible movies that I could see for this month, I noticed I had none from the 40s, and that's mostly because the Hollywood system was more preoccupied with the war efforts and giving audiences something to feel entertained while the horrors of real life were happening around them. You had a couple exceptions like The Wolfman. For the most part, the Universal and other studio systems were more interested in horror during the 30s, and then it later saw a revival in the 50s with invasion movies, sci-fi movies, monster movies. But anyway, it's still kind of relevant, mostly because of the setting. The film stars Cary Grant in a typical comedy role, which really gives him a lot of free range to show his chops and his charisma, which is unmatched in all of Hollywood movies. I really think that this is probably his most over-the-top performance that I've seen from him, and in some cases he goes a little bit too far with his eccentric reactions to crazy things that are happening. But his charisma bleeds from the screen, so it works for this kind of movie. The premise is Cary Grant just can't get a break. He just can't get a break. He just got married and is getting ready to go on his honeymoon when he finds out that his two aunts have been murdering people and hiding their bodies in the cellar. To them, they don't see it as a crime. They're delusional. But to him, he's losing his mind. Meanwhile, his uncle has been completely insane for the past several years, thinking that he is Teddy Roosevelt. Also, his kid brother, who used to torture him as a child before fleeing to do who knows what, is on the loose, turned a mass murderer with a German doctor as his accomplice, who's given him a disfigured plastic surgery face in order to make his appearance unrecognizable because of all the murders he's committed. And now this guy's breaking into the house too to try and get his way. He just can't get a break. Poor Cary. The film is based off of a stage play adaptation, and from the little that I've read about it, the stage producers really screwed over this movie. It was shot in 1941, but wasn't released until 44 because of a contractual obligation where the studio promised not to release the film in theaters until the production had finished running in New York. The stage production, that is. Which was fine, except the stage production ended up being so popular that it was on display for over 3 years. Another reason why the studio was kind of screwed over by the theatrical producers was because of the murderous brother character. It's a running joke throughout the movie that because of his most recent disfigured appearance, he looks exactly like the Frankenstein monster, more accurately Boris Karloff, and they even call him Boris Karloff in the film many times. Well, on the stage, this character was actually played by Boris Karloff, and it would have been a great chance to get him in a movie like this as opposed to his typical horror roles. He was all game to do it, but the producers wouldn't let him go. He was actually still playing the role on the stage while they were making the movie because the producers wouldn't let him leave. They were worried that if he was gone for a few months to film the film, then nobody would be interested in seeing the play without any other big-name actors. Warner Brothers actually offered to have Humphrey Bogart fill in on the stage, which I think would have been a great trade-off, but the producers were too jealous, so they kept him for themselves. It's a minor note. It's still interesting to think what could have happened if we had a 40s horror comedy with Boris Karloff facing against Cary Grant in a slapstick battle. Peter Lorre also shows up as the evil Dr. Einstein, and He's great. It's a pretty harmless film. The Halloween aesthetic makes it kind of interesting above a typical comedy because there's a lot of spooky lighting and whatnot. It's nothing too special, but it's still entertaining, and I'd give it a light recommendation, especially if you're a fan of Cary Grant.